Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. This is ArtsBeat, broadcasting today from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy. This is our new home for both 89.5 FM WSKB and Comcast Channel 15. Our guest today on ArtsBeat is Kate McGuire, who's the CEO and Artistic Director of the Berkshire Theater Group. And we're going to spend an hour chatting about upcoming productions at the Unicorn Theater in Stockbridge and the Colonial Theater in Pittsfield. The third theater, the Fitzpatrick Main Stage, shuttered down for the winter season.
Sadly.
But if you thought that summer theater ended on Labor Day, you'd be definitely wrong. Summer theater goes year-round now in the Berkshires.
That's right. It's always summer in the Berkshires.
Yeah. Kate, it's so good to see you. It's been such a while.
It's a treat to be here in your new headquarters. I like them a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I felt bad that I missed almost an entire summer of theater, but one of the three shows I was able to go see was The Skin of Our Teeth at the Fitzpatrick. And for me, it was kind of an experience because we all had to read that play in school. I had never seen a live production.
I had never seen a live production either, so sometimes you just have to put it on in order to see it, right?
Exactly. And somebody said to me, but no, you did see it because Stage West did it in between the time that I was there and you were there. But
Oh, really?
I don't remember anything about it.
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah.
I guess I didn't
never
go.
saw it. No, you mustn't have.
Yeah.
You were waiting for ours.
Yeah, I was waiting for yours.
Thank you very much.
So you've had a great summer season.
We had a terrific summer season. We had all kinds of shows. We had lots of visitors. We increased our visitation by 20% this year, and last year was a good year. So we're happy that we met so many of our old friends and so many new friends this year as well.
And part of the season, a lot of people came back to do shows that had been there in previous years, but there were a lot of new faces as well.
Well, I think, holding a company together, this was my 25th year, is important because actors, directors, designers, even the technicians and administrators all start to develop a common vocabulary. However, we're in the theater, we're in the change business, so you're also wanting to refresh and bring in new faces as well.
Now, as I said, the season hasn't ended because there's one more show coming up at the Unicorn.
It's true.
And it's kind of an interesting play. In thinking it's called What the Jews Believe. It's not anything to do with my family. They have nothing to do with it.
I have no idea. Maybe it does.
Maybe it does. But I want to say maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, Stage West did a production called The Immigrant, which was Mark Herlick, the actor, director, and playwright, wrote a play about his ancestors who were East European German Jews who were resettled in the United States in a small Texas town. And the play became a big hit in all the regional theaters.
I think it was one of the most produced theaters.
Yeah, because it spoke universally about being taken from familiar surroundings and being put in a new place and having to learn to cope. So What the Jews Believe is like a sequel to that.
It is. Mark Herlick wrote a play called The Legacy, which is what this play's original title was. And it follows the family that settled in Texas. And he has rewritten a lot of it. And what he said is that he's had so many more experiences. The play is not autobiographical, but in many ways touches on themes in his own life. And I think Mark also feels like this is his family that was, in The Immigrant. So he's taken a fresh look at this family. And when he wrote the play, he wanted to call it What the Jews Believe. And at the time, his agent and lots of folks said, oh, no, you can't name it that. That's not a title people remember. Well, I can tell you, Mark, people remember this title.
Yeah, for sure.
People remember this title, and it's a beautiful piece. I just heard, so rehearsals started a week and a half ago. And of course, on the first day of rehearsal, we have a read-through. The actors all sit around a table, and we get to hear a little bit of what's coming. And I walked out of the theater with all kinds of questions about life, about what we believe, about faith. Big questions. And I remember getting in my car, I was driving, and I was in that sort of trance-like state that you can be in after seeing a show, when the show has literally transported you to another place. It's a beautiful play. It's about this particular family. They are facing a crisis in their family, and young son is searching, father is searching, mother. They're all trying to figure out how they're going to get through this crisis with some faith. And so the play is essentially about, where do we go to find faith? Where is it inside us? What gets handed down to us about our faith? It's quite beautiful and poignant.
Now, I remember The Immigrant is having moments of humor.
Yes.
And it does.
Yes, the same with this. The play starts off and it's really funny. And then it becomes thoughtful. It's not a dark play. It's just incredibly thoughtful, and poignant is the right word, I think.
And he's directing his play.
He is directing his play. Have you ever met Mark?
I've never.
Oh, my goodness. The last time I saw him on stage was in Chicago. He was doing the first Light in the Piazza. I think it was at the Goodman Theater. And I was just swooning at this man's beautiful singing voice and his acting. I mean, he was incredible. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, I hope he's on my stage someday. And it's not so much his walking on the stage literally, but he is certainly present on our stage with this production.
And so the production opens.
So the production opens, we start preview September 26th. I believe we open that Saturday, which is the 28th. And then it'll run through October 20th. Performances are Thursday through Sunday, 7 p.m., matinee on Saturday and Sunday. And a wonderful company making their family as we speak at the Unicorn Theater.
And the Unicorn Theater is a wonderful place to see a show because it's so small.
Yep.
It's like being in a living room.
It's totally like, and we will be in their living room. Yeah.
So the main series is over. You did the play Rock and Roll Man. Mm-hmm. And it was billed as pre-Broadway.
Right.
But they were really using the Colonial Theater as a kind of tryout.
That's
and everything.
right.
What's happening to it now?
So we've been talking with the folks that worked on Rock and Roll Man, the creators. They learned a lot by doing the show at the Colonial Theater. They're doing some rewrites right now and then determining where they're going to take it to next.
So that must be an exciting new venture because the year before, Children of a Lesser God kind of found its feet.
That's right.
And its voice at Berkshire Theater Group and then went to Broadway. So
it's fun. It's so much fun. What was also especially exciting for us was Children of a Lesser God, as you know, was at the Playhouse in Stockbridge, Fitzpatrick Main Stage. Rock and Roll Man was at the Colonial Theater, and this was the first time that we've worked with outside producers on a show like this at the Colonial Theater. And a lot of folks came up from New York, would walk into that theater and just be completely bowled over. So I have a feeling that this will happen again. We'll do more tryouts. We're getting a lot of phone calls. It's hard to sit in that theater and not recognize that you can easily move a show from the Colonial to a Broadway house. And so we'll see what's next. But it was really fun. And the audiences came in droves. They loved it.
Now, you have other events coming to the Colonial throughout the fall, mostly music,
yes,
tribute bands, covers, and I think the Young at Heart Chorus.
The Young at Heart Chorus is there. I think it's a week from Sunday, actually, that they're with us. And it's a special show in honor of a wonderful man who happens to be our Representative Pignatelli's father, who passed away this past year. And so this show is in memory of Smitty Pignatelli's father, which is very sweet.
And then I assume as we move forward, there will be some community productions,
That's right.
touring shows,
Yes.
and then A Christmas Carol.
Yes. So we just started rehearsal yesterday for, I don't know if you have read them, but all of my children read the Magic Treehouse stories by a writer named Mary Pope Osborne, who happens to live in the Berkshires. And so last year, Mary Pope called us and asked if we would like to take one of her stories, which are read around the world, and present it as a play for the area schools. She brought us the piece with music and song, and we took it around Berkshire County. Mary Pope Osborne also gives every school child a storybook. It was incredibly successful. All the kids have read many of these stories already. And so this year we're doing her piece about pirates. So the basis of the story is that two kids travel to a tree, and they travel through time and wind up meeting folks like Shakespeare, or all of a sudden wind up on a pirate ship. And this year, we're on a pirate ship in the Magic Treehouse. So that will go to all the schools out in Berkshire County as well as outside area schools. I believe it'll be coming to this community as well. I have to get you those dates. In other productions, this summer we ran a production of Shrek. There were 120 school kids with adults in the show. It was absolutely splendid. Shrek really has good music. And this fall, we will be presenting Willy Wonka Jr. with 140 elementary school children. It's a half-hour production. Those Music Theater International, they really know how to do it. So what they've done is they've got Willy Wonka Jr., which is a half-hour version for the littlest. And then there's another Willy Wonka, which is about an hour. And then, of course, there's the Willy Wonka that we all know. So this is Willy Wonka Jr. with our littlest, 1st through 5th grade performing. And literally, you haven't heard anything till you've heard 140 school children singing Oompa Loompa. I promise I'll record it for you.
I want to hear that.
All right. And so we've got Willy Wonka coming, and then A Christmas Carol, which is our tradition over the holiday season. Lots of music, lots of bands coming, lots of events in our garage where we have a comedy series, and young musicians performing. We work with a programmer named Tor Crowder, who's a wonderful musician himself. And what we've begun to do with Tor is produce our own musical events. So, for example, we've got a night coming up called A Night in New Orleans. And it's celebrating the music of Dr. John, Charles and Art Neville. And Rev Tor brings in area musicians from New York, to put this piece together. We've got a New Orleans band coming that will be going up and down the aisles during intermission, playing with the audience, providing music. And of course, there will be Mardi Gras beads, so come and get your Mardi Gras bead early.
So Berkshire Theater Group has really become a year-round producer.
Yes.
For not only adults, but for community people and for children.
That's right. The education program currently serves 13,000 of the 16,000 school children in Berkshire County. And when I say we serve them, that means that we're in the schools with programs. In many cases, we're in the school for up to 13 weeks with our artists in residence. Each child writes a one-act play that we're working with. They get to see the touring production that I spoke of, the play by Mary Pope Osborne. So they'll see that touring production. There's after-school programs, many programs for kids at risk. And we have 3 musicals a year now. So this year we did Aladdin, Shrek, Willy Wonka Jr. coming, and then, of course, A Christmas Carol. So it's a lot of programming for kids. What makes me especially proud, Mark, is that, for example, when I'm watching a production like Shrek and I see all those kids on our stage, some of them have been with us for 10 years. I can't even tell you how many letters of recommendation we write now for kids to go on to college, to study whatever.
And I remember when we came up to do a radio special, not last summer, but the summer
Yes.
before. And we were doing it on the Fitzpatrick main stage. And one of the
It was probably Hannah Casella.
Hannah Casella, she had grown up at the Berkshire
Yes.
Theatre Group and was going off to UMass to study theater.
And so you saw Hannah this summer in Skin of Our Teeth. She was one of our acting interns this summer. She was in Skin of Our Teeth. And then later, the acting interns performed You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown on the Colonial stage as part of Fun Free Friday, sponsored by the Highland Foundation, which is a great group and sponsors productions, whole productions, so that every kid can get in for free, which is just splendid. So what is making a difference, I think, is that these kids that have been on our stage, the Hannah Casellas, they own that stage now. And so I feel like I can rest easy at night because they are the legacy of Berkshire Theatre Group. They are the ones that will steer us to the future. They own those theaters. It's so great to have all these amazing musicians come through and comedians in the winter months and then to produce these great shows. But actually, the kids' lives are changed in so many ways by the activity, and know that that was the place where the transformation happened.
And so it means that long after we're all off the scene, these theaters will continue to grow because they're going to invest their lives in it.
Hannah Casella very easily could be sitting in my chair one day. I tell her that all the time. I ask her when she'd like to get into it frequently.
We should tell people that are listening, while we're talking about everything that's going on at Berkshire Theatre Group, you've got a website that it goes into every event in depth. You can order tickets online and all of that. So it's berkshiretheatregroup.org.
That's right.
And we're going to take a quick break here to acknowledge our underwriters who pay for the programming that you're listening to here on 89.5 FM WSKB and Comcast Channel 15 here from Studio 120 at our new headquarters at Westfield Technical Academy. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer this morning. We're talking with Kate McGuire from the Berkshire Theatre Group, and we'll be right back.
AB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating. Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donuts shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach with ArtsBeat, and my guest today is Kate McGuire from the Berkshire Theater Group. We're back every Friday at 8 a.m., bringing you the best of the people that are the creative forces behind the performing arts here in Western Massachusetts and Northern Connecticut. Next Friday, we'll be chatting with the good people from TheaterWorks in Hartford that are opening their season with a play called American Son, which had its world premiere at Barrington Stage in Pittsfield. It's a powerhouse of a play. It went on to Broadway. It has been filmed for Netflix, and it opens TheaterWorks' upcoming season. And love to have the TheaterWorks people here. But today we get a whole hour with Kate McGuire from Berkshire Theater Group. And I have to say that Kate and I have been friends, and Kate's husband, the actor, director, and teacher Eric Hill, we all started at Stage West. We've known each other for decades. And while I was off on leave and was recovering from an accident, Kate and Eric and the people at Berkshire Theater Group sent me a plant for my room. And I had a dark room in rehab, and so one of my friends said, let me take the plant home and watch it until you're out of rehab. And so the plant ended up, it's on my patio, and I have not killed it yet.
I'm very happy to hear that.
The Berkshire Theater Group plant is the centerpiece.
It's really the kind of plant that's hard to kill, too. I mean, and so I have one, and I often send it to others who are very busy people, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a plant made for a busy person, and all of that. But every time that I go out on the patio, I think, what a great gift. And how I said to people how much I miss theater in the 4.5 months that I couldn't really go, and how much the theater meant to me, and not only the place that I miss seeing in various theaters that I had anticipated, but when I my first play that I actually got to go to was The Skin of Our Teeth. And although it was a little too long for me to sit through, and getting in and out of the theater was really difficult at that point in my recovery, being in the theater and experiencing a play and seeing people I knew who embraced me as one of theirs was probably one of the most redeeming moments I had in my road to recovery.
I'm glad to hear
so
that.
I hold a really special place for you and Berkshire
we
Theater
all
Group in my
adore
heart.
you at Berkshire Theater Group.
So,
love welcoming you to the theater.
I love being there. I can't wait to go and see what the Jews believe.
Great. And maybe you'll come to Willy Wonka Jr.
Maybe. Music Theater International, when they introduce these programs for juniors, has now launched a senior short version of things that can be done in, like an assisted living
I'm so glad to know that.
So I told your director, Travis Daly.
Yes.
I said that.
Travis didn't tell me this.
I said to Travis, we were messaging back and forth, and I said, I'm ready to be one of the orphans in Annie when the senior version comes to Berkshire Theater Group.
Oh, well, thank you for telling me that. I'll talk to Travis about that next week and be sure to schedule it.
Yeah, be sure to schedule it.
Okay. We'll check with you first.
Yeah, but I am ready, as you know, to play Tiny Tim in A Christmas Carol.
There we
I've got the leg appliance for it. So you were mentioning during the break that you've acquired some new property and you're restoring an historic house.
Yes. We have a lot of facilities, as you well know. So we have 2 campuses. In Stockbridge, there's the Historic Playhouse, a building that was originally designed by Stanford White and originally located in the center of Stockbridge and then pulled by horses to its current location. A beautiful, beautiful casino it was. And then there's the Mellon Barn, which is where the Unicorn Theater is housed. And the Mellon Barn was once owned by Charles Mellon, the railroad and financier, railroad magnate, I guess you called them then. And so there's about, I would say there's 7 or 8 acres on the Stockbridge campus. Beautiful grounds, you can see the rolling hills. And we have a house there called the Collins House where we house about 10 interns. They love it because they just roll out of their beds in the morning and there they are right at their shops. Yeah. And then down the road in Pittsfield, in a totally different environment, 10 minutes down the road, or at least 10 minutes the way I drive in the summertime, is the beautiful Colonial Theater, another historic, extraordinary theater. designed by a gentleman named Mr. McAlpatrick, who designed many theaters in this country. The building premiered with vaudeville shows in 1903.
In fact, it's being projected behind us as we speak.
It's a beautiful theater. And was closed for 50 years. And then when Pittsfield was going through a real, they were doing some soul searching. General Electric had left the community. There was a lot of depression. If you look down North Street, no one recognized it for what it once was in its heyday. And I love that what they decided would really pull them up by their bootstraps was to renovate a theater. And so the Colonial Theater was renovated, and that was 16 years ago, I believe. Berkshire Theater Festival merged with the Colonial Theater. It'll be 10 years next summer. And so it's now Berkshire. That's why we call it Berkshire Theater Group, because we are one big group of theaters. A few years ago, we acquired a house on Wendell Avenue, which is right behind the Colonial Theater. And there are 9 beautiful suites. It was once an inn, fallen into disrepair. Thanks to the help of the Massachusetts Cultural Council and the Cultural Facilities Fund and many wonderful donors, we opened the house 2 days before the Rock and Roll Man cast arrived, and many of them moved into this fabulous house, just fabulous. We'll be having an open house there. I think it's October 7th. You'll be getting an invitation. They're going out next week. But the house has 9 gorgeous suites for our equity actors, beautiful living quarters, dining room, kitchen. There's a downstairs area, a basement area that will be renovated at some point as well. But it's one of those great old houses that sort of talks. And we're so happy to have completed that renovation and to have made it through most of the campaign. There's still a little bit more to raise. And if anyone would like a naming opportunity, it could be named after you, Mark. But it's a wonderful space. And what it also allows us the opportunity to do, especially in the winter months when we don't have the equity actors in there, is to rent that space out. So imagine you want to do a wedding, as many people have done at the Colonial Theater. There's great spaces for the dinner. The stage is a wonderful space to get married on. And you have your rehearsal dinner and your grooms and bridesmaids and everyone staying at the Thaddeus Clapp House, and everybody is right there for you. Or, as wonderful David Auburn, who's one of our directors and a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, said, Kate, we could do a playwriting conference here. I would love to come here for a week with other playwrights and just spend time really hammering out some ideas and talking with each other. So there's all kinds of possibilities for this great house now.
Yeah, you've got such a operation going in Pittsfield, and Barrington Stage has one down the street. Mm-hmm. Have the two of you felt or seen a resurgence in Pittsfield because of your presence?
Oh, there's no doubt that, well, the industry, I think the industry that employs the most people in Berkshire County is the hospital. Right behind that are all the culturals. So I like to think of Berkshire County as America's premier cultural resort. There's nowhere else like it in the country where you can see theater, dance, hear music. And in Pittsfield, you can feel how much the town, the city has been impacted. We often walk over to Patrick's restaurant for a bite to eat and can't get a table because on nights when there's shows, that place is packed, as are all the other restaurants now downtown, and more restaurants coming. You know, sometimes when you're so close to something, you can't really see it, but I always appreciate when the actors arrive, and they haven't been with us since the summer before, or the artists arrive, and what they say is, my goodness, it's still looking brighter and shinier. So yes, Pittsfield has had an incredible resurgence.
And I understand starting soon, relatively soon, Amtrak is going to run weekend trains from New York to Pittsfield.
Yeah, we're hoping for next year on that one. That'll be fabulous.
Yeah, because certainly here, where they've started the Valley Flyer from Greenfield to Springfield, they have 3 or 4 trains a day.
Really? Has it worked well?
And the Connecticut Rail from Springfield to New Haven every hour. People are coming to cultural events by train. People in Greenfield can come down to Springfield to work, or there's actually they can go to New York and come back the same day.
That's great.
And it's boosting the economy.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and the other thing is that, millennials are used to public transportation, and especially those in New York. They don't own cars. I have my son there. He doesn't have a car. And so to be able to get them to us is also something that we really must attend to for the future of the community.
Well, talking about the future, I would assume now that the summer season just ended, that you're already planning next year and maybe the year after.
No, not really. I mean, we have a couple of ideas. Hershey Felder, who was with us this past summer, will be back again, mostly because he told the audience that he would be back again. So he'll be back. And what usually happens is people begin to bring ideas to the table. But round about August, I can see my brain cells, and they're spread all over both campuses. And so I actually don't make decisions at that point. I then usually spend September and October picking up all those brain cells, gathering them back putting them back. And we announce our season on Valentine's Day generally. And so by the end of the year, I have a pretty good idea. And certainly some folks have brought us ideas, and they're just wonderful, so they're going to be hard to pass up. And there's a long list that I always refer to. And hopefully, before I pass on the mantle to Hannah Casella, as we were talking about, I'll get through a lot of those plays.
But, I mean, you certainly spend a lot of time going to plays and stuff like that. Are there things that you're looking at and say, maybe 5 years from now we should do that?
Yes. And I think that next year, 2020, is going to be a very particular year to think about. There's a major election coming up. Did you hear about that election?
Yeah, I think I read about that somewhere. Yeah.
And so there's going to be a lot of focus, I think. People's minds are going to be on that. And I don't think that, we're going to do plays completely devoted to presidential elections or, really head right towards that theme. But I do think it's important to be mindful of what's going on in people's minds. What's the general atmosphere out there? Oftentimes when things have gotten dark in the past, that's the time when people tend to want light, musicals, and to just have a place for relief.
But in the same token, you initiated a program, No Boundaries.
No Boundaries in Art. That's right.
Which really gave people a chance to express themselves and express dark thoughts and express oppression and the need for a variety of things.
Yep.
So regardless of whether it's an election year or not, artists have an opportunity to voice their thoughts.
It's important. We have an art show, which is part of No Boundaries in Art, coming over the next month. And these artists are extraordinary women. The show is devoted to breast cancer awareness. There'll be talks surrounding the show. We have lovely dance performance coming with the imagery in our choreographer Veronica Bone of what does it mean to be a survivor. Beautiful poetry reading. Wendy Rabinowitz, a wonderful artist who passed away sadly last year. We're having a memorial right after this art exhibit opens, and we will have on display some of her work.
I did an interview with her years ago, and
Great
I got
woman.
a chance to see some of her art and get to know her.
Yep.
First of all, it's a major loss, but second of all, her art
Beautiful.
is phenomenal.
It's and you know, as we're talking about this play, What the Jews Believe, her artwork was so informed by her faith. And her tapestries that she created were just so beautiful and meaningful, I think. So it's a real honor to not only know that we'll be able to be near her artwork, but that her family will be with us to honor her memory on our stage as well.
And I remember, maybe 30 years ago when I was transitioning to reporter, and I was writing for Jewish Weekly News. I did a story about her and some of the scrolls that she had embroidered for Torahs and,
Oh, they were just beautiful.
absolutely phenomenal
Yeah.
stuff. And I got to know her because she was married to the Berkshire Eagle theater reporter,
Jeffrey
Jeff
Borak, dear Jeffrey.
And, I would always see her at performances, and she would always fill me in on the things that she was doing. Her career was so exciting.
It was very exciting. And she had the heart of a child. She saw things with such brightness and innocence in the world. My favorite times with Wendy, honestly, were when she would come for our community show in the summer months with her grandchildren. And so this year's production of Shrek was actually dedicated to her memory. A great, great woman and a phenomenal artist.
Yeah, wonderful person, and Jeff is a wonderful
Jeff
guy
is great.
as well. And he has been as tough as he can be as a theater critic. He has championed theater and the arts in Berkshire. He's the one media source that just is constantly on top of
I feel
everything.
so fortunate to have a local newspaper that covers the arts the way the Berkshire Eagle does. And I, as I said, we are a large part of the community, but they really do service to the entire community, and we're so grateful for that
Not only are
coverage.
they champions, but when there's a real issue,
That's
like
right.
the Berkshire Museum controversy, they provided better news coverage than any other.
It was very in-depth investigative reporting.
And I'm proud that Westfield News Group that I work for provides a local.
It's so important, isn't it?
It is, because what people don't realize is we can have great plays and musicals and concerts and exhibits, but all of the people that are making those are people that are your neighbors and your friends, and they live in the community. They earn money, they spend it in
Right.
the local stores, and it's the creative economy here in Western Massachusetts is just exquisite.
It is. And I think that people also forget, because so many newspapers have gotten bought by large conglomerates that are not even in the community. They're out west or wherever they are, hundreds of miles away from that community. And the newspaper loses any access and sensibility of what's going on. We're very lucky here.
We are.
Westfield and the Berkshires.
We got to take another break.
All right.
We've got underwriters to acknowledge who make programming here on ArtsBeat and WSKB and Comcast 15 possible. We've got a crew of students from the Westfield Technical Academy that are learning broadcasting both for radio and television, who are running our cameras and working on our soundboards and directing the TV aspect, and we've got them to thank. But we're going to acknowledge our underwriters and take a quick break, and we'll be back.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State T-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, Visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com. Support for Community Radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone, to ArtsBeat. I'm Mark Auerbach. My guest today is Kate McGuire. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We're here every Friday at 8 a.m., and next week we'll be chatting with the folks from TheaterWorks in Hartford who are going to be launching their new season in October with the play American Son, which had its world premiere at Barrington Stage in Pittsfield a couple of seasons ago. And coming up after that, we'll be talking with Sean Farley from the University of Massachusetts Fine Arts Center, and later on in October with Jay Pagluca and Patrick Berry, who are launching a new music series at the Westfield Women's Club, which launches in November and brings weekly concerts of tribute bands and pop music and stuff to downtown Westfield every week. And one of the things that they've intimated is they may expand their programming down the road to include other art forms besides pop music. So lots of good stuff coming up on ArtsBeat. So we were talking, you're not ready to plan next year's season until you...
I'd take any ideas.
Okay.
I'm always interested, actually, not at our theater, but in theater, in the world of theater. What was the play that most changed you, or you walked out and thought, where have I been? What did I just see? That was...
I think for me, it was, I was a teenager on a class trip to New York to see a show, and we were told we were going to see Story Theater with the then unknown Valerie Harper. It was a Paul Sills thing. And somebody had made a mess up with the tickets, and they had 4 less tickets than the group. And so the ticket agent said, well, we'll take 4 of you across the street. There's a new Sondheim musical in previews, and it was Follies.
No, sir.
So I saw
Weren't
Follies.
you lucky?
I was incredibly lucky. I saw Follies before it ever opened. And I knew nothing about the Ziegfeld Follies or those years, and I certainly didn't know about middle-aged people being unhappy about how their lives had turned out. But the excitement of seeing the stage, which was in ruins for the first act, kind of transform into the Loveland sequence, I was transported away. And although I was interested in majoring in theater, that was the point when I realized that I could be in theater, I could work in theater, and I could communicate in ways that no one else could communicate because it's all about the story. That was for me. What about you?
You know, I actually think it was probably a similar venture. When I was young, the first show, I took a plane. My mother and father put me on a plane at Logan Airport to go see my aunt, my single aunt in New York City, and she took me to see to see the musical Mame with Angela Lansbury. And I, too, was beginning to get interested in theater, and I thought, that's what I'm going to do for sure. It was just so fun and exciting. I must say that this past year, I went into New York. I saw 2 extraordinary productions. One, the Lehman Trilogy, But another production at the Atlantic Theater of The Mother, which is by Florian Zeller, whose name is sort of becoming more popular. And I went because a good friend of our theater's, Chris Noth, was in the production. But the actress Isabelle Huppert played the role of the mother. And it was such an experience to watch her. There are those rare performers who you realize why they're known internationally. That just the flick of a finger or the movement of their head means something. I mean, it was an incredible performance that I will never, ever forget.
There are a couple of performances I've seen over the years where I felt that I went to see Elizabeth Taylor in The Little Foxes.
You did?
I was living in New York at the time, and it was down the street, and I bought a standing room ticket. And although she was really not a stage actress in any way, it was early in the run, so she was really trying to do her best, and it was a transformative performance. And I never saw her in anything afterwards, but it was really exciting.
Well, she's a great Regina, isn't she?
Yeah.
I saw the most recent one, and Cynthia Nixon was a glorious birdie. I saw it on she and who was the other actress in it? They were
they
switching
alternated
back,
in the parts.
but I saw her the night that she played Birdie, which is one of my favorite roles.
And one of the two shows I saw this summer was an actor who had done a lot of Berkshire Theatre Group thing. It was a play about gun violence called On the Exhale at Chester Theatre, and it was Tara Franklin. And I mean, I used to joke and say I'd pay good money to see Tara Franklin read the Yellow Pages, but it was a performance in a real small theater, and it was a solo performance, and something about this character and the way it was portrayed really touched me. And I usually attend performances with one of my closest friends who's not a theater person, and I can gauge how good a theater performance impacts how Rob reacts to what he sees. And I, as a child of the theater, react differently.
Yes,
but when you see somebody who doesn't go to the theater all that often, mesmerized by something that's going on stage, you know it's good theater.
It's true. It's true. I missed her in that.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful actress.
And I've interviewed her and her husband, James Barry. In fact, I spent an hour with them one day when she actually said, I got to take a 10-minute break and drive my child to school. And here we were live on the radio, and she took her son to school, and James kept on. But James has directed Working this summer, which was one of the shows that I missed at Berkshire Theatre Group that I wanted to see.
Oh, I'm so sorry you missed. And it's funny because Working ran for a long time. I think it had a 6 or 7 week run. And one of our neighbors walked into the box office one day and said, I just want you to know that the sign out front, somebody keeps forgetting to take the sold out sign off of it because it's on there in the morning. And we said, ma'am, the show is sold out. The run is sold out. It was amazing. It was amazing. And so relevant.
Definitely. And from what I understood, because I didn't get to see it, that they took the original and they really updated it and revamped it in a good way, because most of us today don't really know a lot of trash collectors or waitresses, whereas when the show was first written, a lot of people that we knew were doing that kind of work. And today we're more high-tech or whatever.
Yes.
But they said that the play had as a musical, really had an impact.
It was wonderful. It was updated, I think, about 10 years ago and presented in New York. And it was James Taylor, who, of course, lives in the Berkshires, who a couple of years ago said to me, why aren't you doing, I only wrote music for one show, for one musical. Can't you do it? I thought, this is one of those that has to get done. But truly a story about the working people of this country and their hopes for the next generation. It couldn't have come at a better time for the audience to receive it.
Now that you're taking September, October, November off and kind of
pondering.
Yeah. Are you getting a trip somewhere? You take vacations?
Well, we are actually. So my husband is Eric Hill, who directs with us and performs annually as Scrooge in his own adaptation. And so this Saturday is his birthday, September 14th. It is also our twin daughters, Emma and Isadora's birthday. So Eric, Emma, and Isadora all celebrate September 14th. And so Emma rented us all a house in the Rockaways. We're going to Queens. I've never been to the beach in Queens. I understand that it's really been changed since Sandy
Yeah, when I
went
lived
through.
in New York, it was the only beach you could easily go to on the subway. So
Yes.
for, I guess it was $1 token, you could go to Rockaway Beach, and there were a bunch of bungalows that were falling apart,
Right.
and the beach was filthy, and you'd lie there in the sun.
Please
and it
tell
was,
me it's better now.
It has totally become a hip area
Oh, it
of
is?
New York. But at the time, they were reconstructing one of the runways at JFK, so the planes would be taking off
Oh,
over
no.
your head. There was just nothing exotic about it.
Well, that's
but
where
we
we're
went
headed.
every Saturday.
did?
We take the subway. It was a 45-minute A-train trip from Hell's
So
Kitchen down
funny.
to Rockaway.
And my son, Alexander, of course, will be joining us with his girlfriend. So there are 8 of us with the 2 grandchildren that will be in the little bungalow that Emma has rented for us. I'm sure it's going to be a swell time. So I'm, of course, bringing the food and birthday cakes and really looking forward to it all.
So that's for you. It's a total escape.
That's a vacation. I will be there for 3 days.
Yeah, but I just remember, I think it was last year, or the year before, that you and Eric went to Greece. And
Yes, it was like 4 years ago.
yeah, but
now.
he took a photograph of you in one of the Greek amphitheaters.
That's right.
And
I was doing the pre-show speech.
yeah, exactly. When I showed Rob the thing, he said, "Oh my God, she's telling people to turn off their cell phones."
Turn off. There's the exits, folks. My mother's family was from Greece, and so it was very special to be there for sure. Yeah.
So will you get another winter getaway before you?
I don't
work
know. We
24
are
hours
getting a
day?
new puppy. So, according to Mr. Hill, we have to stay home and train the puppy this winter. The puppy will arrive right before Christmas.
What kind of puppy?
A Labrador. Another Labrador. Why are we getting another dog? I'm not quite sure yet, but the dog is coming.
So we have to wait till February to learn about next season. But in the interim, with all these shows and everything, how can people find out about what's happening at Berkshire Theatre
Well,
Group?
please go to our website, www.berkshiretheatregroup.org. Everything is listed there. Or, simply call our box office at 448-8084 and speak with anyone that answers the phone, and they'll be happy to introduce you to our theater. The other thing we do frequently are tours of the theater, which are really interesting. We have one coming up this Saturday. A wonderful historian that works with us named Bill Munn takes groups on tours of the Colonial Theater. And, it feels like you can see Cohen and Ethel Barrymore every once in a while.
When I know the theater was renovated, but when you came to the Berkshires, and you've been working in the Berkshires
Yep.
for a while, did you know that theater existed when you
No.
first came?
No, I didn't. So I think I've been in the Berkshires for 35 years.
Yeah.
At the Berkshire Theater for 25. And so when I first went to the Berkshires, I worked at Shakespeare and Company for a few years, and then went to Stage West, and then went back to the Berkshires. But when I was there, that was the period that Pittsfield was really getting boarded up. And there was an art supply store called Miller Art Supply that was on North Street at the current location where the Colonial is. You could actually go to the back of the art store, and there were little holes in the wall, and you could see this theater that was crumbling. But I was never conscious of it. Then about, I would say it was 20 years ago, I was asked to go to a meeting with folks who were trying to figure out what to do if they did renovate that theater. they were starting to raise money and talk about the revitalization. And so I went to a meeting and I was asked to be on the board. This was before I had anything to do with the Colonial. So I was actually on the board of the Colonial Theater when the renovation was happening. And I can tell you, it is a real honor to look at the plaque with the original board names, and mine is there. And now there I am.
Did you ever think, as you were at that stage, that the theater could become what it is?
I had no idea. I mean, what happened was the theater was renovated, and then we all hit 2008 and the financial crisis. And it was the fall, and at that point, I remember realizing that when I began in the Berkshires 35 years ago, among the theaters, there was really only Shakespeare and Company, Williamstown, and Berkshire Theater. So on a Friday night, there were 1,500 seats to sell. By 2008, everybody had built second theaters, more theaters had been built. There were 7,500 seats to sell, only in the theater. That doesn't include Jacob's Pillow,
Or
Tanglewood,
or
all
anything.
of that,
Yeah.
right? And the world was collapsing. Remember how it was, and I was looking out at a landscape and thought, how are we going to support all of these theaters? Surely there must be ways for us to work together. And at that time, which was now 10 years ago, I called some of my colleagues in the area, and when I called to try to generate a conversation, and when I called the Colonial Theater, the then executive director had just left. And so the president of the board asked if he could talk with me. And in I went. And it was the two gentlemen that I met with from the Colonial Board that introduced the idea of a total merger between the two organizations. And I certainly knew how gorgeous that theater was. It was also at a time when our educational programming at Berkshire Theater Festival was expanding. It was at a time when we were kind of aching to be able to do larger musicals. And the space, the Fitzpatrick main stage just doesn't afford the space for a band or orchestra. We've done musicals, but it's always complicated and difficult. And for a large musical, certainly we couldn't do a Shrek or Rock and Roll Man. It just wouldn't be appropriate. And so the space afforded the next step for Berkshire Theater Festival artistically. And it also saved each organization a lot of money. I mean, if you think about it, even just doing one brochure as opposed to two separate, every little piece we began to realize that we could economize. I have to tell you, though, that when I walked into the ladies' room at the Colonial Theater, I stood there and thought, I really have to have this theater. There are 28 stalls. And so the possibility for concession sales is that much greater, Mark. Yes. I'm a little schizophrenic because I do wear one hat that's my artistic director's hat, and then my other hat says CEO.
Yeah, so you have to think of things
like that.
So
I have to think of the finances as well, and those 26 stalls.
Well, you certainly have done great work in not only presenting and producing really fine theater on so many levels, but the educational programs and the programs for kids and the outreach and all that is exemplary. But I think that years from now, when they look at the Berkshires, they're going to say that the renaissance of the Berkshires is due in part to Berkshire Theater Group and you and Barrington Stage and Wham and some of these other entities that have...
Well, Pittsfield is also the center of the county.
Yeah.
So it should lift itself. And as Pittsfield does lift itself, we find ourselves being able to have conversations about some of the challenges that our county faces, like every other county. Opioid addiction, suicide prevention. We're running a lot of meetings at the Colonial Theater right now to have these kinds of discussions. So that theater is in the center of the county, and it is the center of the conversation.
So really, the theater, you made the theater an entity that belongs to everybody.
That's right, especially that colonial theater.
Yeah, I mean that as to become a community resource like that on so many different
It's so
levels.
great because everyone begins to realize that theater is a transformative and that it's a meeting place. And for you and I, it's our place of faith.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
What Kate McGuire believes.
That's the next play.
I'm glad we had this chance to talk, and I can't wait to have you come back. You can even bring Eric Hill and
Thank
the new
you.
puppy with you as soon as you're ready to announce your new season.
Very nice, I promise.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's going to be a couple of things on it that I'm going to be jumping up and down.
Good. We'll see you all the time next
So
summer.
again, BerkshireTheaterGroup.org is where you can learn all about what's happening at the Berkshire Theater Group, whether it's the Colonial Theater or the Unicorn Theater or what will be coming in the spring to the Fitzpatrick. I guess there's no heating there.
There's no heating, so it's a little difficult. But I do want to say thank you to these wonderful students that are here. It's so important to have them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be back next week with another ArtsBeat. We'll be talking with the people from TheaterWorks who've just completed a renovation in Hartford at their theater, and they open in mid-October. And ArtsBeat Radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB and Comcast Channel 15 from Westfield Technical Academy Studio 120. Our chief engineer today is Peter Coles. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we're going to leave you with some music, and we hope we'll see you next Friday. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mark.